Hey guys, got in a new power station to take a look at. This is the Veclips6. This was sent to me by Backus Global, free of charge. I am not getting paid in any way, and I'm definitely not being told what to say about this power station, so everything will be my thoughts and opinions on it. You know, over the past 4, 5, 6 years, I've done a lot of videos on power stations, and I truly believe that everybody should have one. It doesn't really matter to me what brand or what size, capacity, stuff like that, but there are so many uses for these. But as far as this Veclips6 goes, I'm going to do a real quick unboxing, and then we'll go over all features and specifications. We'll get the thing charged up and put it to use and see how things work on it. Quickly show you the exterior of the box. This is actually how it was shipped to me, just with the label up on top here. I'm going to get everything pulled out of this box and be back with you. All right, so this is the actual box of the power station. You can see that it says a 733 watt. It's a little bit deceptive. The actual capacity of this Veclips6 is just over 660 watt hours. So what they're doing is they're saying that the inverters for the AC outlets is a 500 watt inverter. And then up on top, there's going to be a wireless charger for 10 watts. The USB A's are 15 watts combined. There's a USB-C at 78 watts. There's a 12 volt outlet that's 120 watts. And then there's a light on the back that's 10 watts. And if you add all of that up, it gives you your 733 watts. But really the capacity is the important thing. It's just over 660. And the inverters, which I'll go over all this in a bit, is 500 watts. But just kind of show you around the box quickly. You can charge it with solar. We'll just kind of look at some of this stuff quickly. It looks like we have a wall charger and a USB-C cable included. And there's a little diagram right here that shows you some of your typical household stuff, how many hours you could use this with. So like if you wanted to run your cable modem and router, it'd probably last you about 50 hours. If you wanted to do a television, that's a 45 watt TV. This should last about 15 hours. But we'll go over some of that stuff as we're using it. All right, I am going to get the unit out of this box and show you everything that's in there. So inside that box was some really thick foam padding. There was the wall charger, a USB-C cable, the manual, and also this paper right here, which I've actually never seen this in any of the power stations I've had, basically saying not to return it to the retailer. So I kind of started looking up the Vector model, and we'll come to find out they have sold these at Home Depot, Walmart, and even Optics Planet has them. I want to quickly show you guys the wall charger. It's a 19 volt at 4.73 amps. So it's got basically 90 watts. If this thing is a true 660 plus watt hour, that's going to take over 7 hours using this to recharge it. So a little bit slow on the charging time. Quickly show you guys the manual here. It looks like that Backus Global is in Boca Raton, Florida. The manual actually looks really good. Lots of clear pictures, very detailed instructions. Everything is spelled correctly. And I'll just kind of quickly show you things you can pause at any point. There may be things that I leave out. I think this is the final page of it. It goes over some of the warnings and error codes and stuff like that. And looks like it has a 2-year warranty on it. And before we get too far into the review, I'll give you guys some dimensions and a weight. It looks like we're just about 9.5 inches wide. Height, let me get down here. Oh, that's probably 7.5. and total depth is probably right about 8 inches. And the weight of it, 14 pounds, 1.1 ounces. So this Veclips6 does use a lithium polymer battery. I don't believe that it's the lithium iron phosphate that a lot of the newer power stations come with. We'll kind of quickly do a little tour here of the power station. We have the display up here and basically all of the controls. So to power the unit on, to turn on the wireless charging, which is up here. There's a light that's going to be on the back. If we want to turn on our AC outlets, our USB outlets, and then the 12 volt DC. This is a touch screen on all of this stuff. It's not an actual like physical button. Down here is where we're going to charge the unit itself, either by that wall adapter that they include. You can charge this if you have a car adapter, and you can also use a solar panel. You have to have an 8mm. I believe this looks to be an 8mm plug. And hopefully I get some sunshine here in the next day or two to be able to show you guys a solar panel charge on this. We have our USB-A outlets here. So those are 3.1 amp, 5 volts, or 15 watts. We have 2 USB-C. The first one is an 18 watt. The other is a power delivery 60 watt. And the power delivery port is in and out. So what I'm going to try to do is whenever we start charging this is I'm going to plug it into the wall and get that 90 watts or whatever that was. And then I'm also going to try to plug it in there, and hopefully they'll both work at the same time and give us 150 watts charging. That'll really speed up our charging time. Over here is our DC ports, so your 12 volt like cigarette plug style, and then also a barrel plug here. Those are 12 volts, 10 amps, so 120 watts combined on this outlet. And then down here are your 2 AC outlets. It's 500 watts combined between the 2 outlets, and it does have a pure sine wave inverter. Moving around to the side, we have a couple like exhaust ports or vents. I'm sure there's fans in here, and it just kind of helps keep the unit warm, especially when that inverter kicks on. On the back, we have our light, an LED light, and then there's kind of like a quick reference manual right here. Just tells you how to turn the thing on and off, how to use the wireless pad, the lights, the DC power, USB power, AC power, and then a couple more vents on this side. On the bottom of the unit, some rubberized feet, and then just some specifications. And on that solar panel, you can use up to a 200 watt, 30 volt panel. So let's get the unit powered on. It should just be simply touching this keypad area up here. Maybe I have to hold it for a second or two. I saw it turn green there. Let's see. There we go. So you do have to hold that for probably every bit of 3 or 4 seconds. It was shipped to me at 56%. Not horrible. I do like to see those usually around 70%, but pretty decent. So we can see that we have a numerical percentage, and there's like a little graph or bar that's, I'm assuming that this is probably going to be green over here. I don't know for sure. I'll have to charge it up and see. So it looks like that display times out if you don't put something on it. But you can see it's yellow there and then red there. And obviously when it gets into the red, it means probably should get it back charging again. It shows over here our output power. So I'll be interested in seeing that if it shows input and output, or if it just shows which one's greater. So we'll figure that out whenever we get something plugged in. And it's going to show how many hours or how many minutes we have left until the thing is completely drained when we're using it. So I'll show you that whenever we get a load on it. Let's get this turned back on. It might not turn off whenever we turn some of these others on. So so that's for our wireless pad up on top. That's a 10 watt charger up there. And then over here, this is for the backlight. Try to not blind us, but let's get that turned on. So that is very, very bright. Wow. And it has a high, low, and then that SOS. We'll turn that off. And then we have our AC button, the USB, DC, AC. Oh, there it came on that time. I thought maybe you had to hold it longer like you did the other thing, but those are basically just tap it, almost like what you would do a phone or tablet or anything. And let's turn one of them on and then see if the display still times out. Again, I obviously don't have any load or anything plugged into it, but I don't know, it probably only took 20 or 30 seconds before, so we'll kind of wait here a few seconds and see if it stays on. So I've waited a couple minutes and the display stays on all the time as long as you have one of the outlets basically turned on. So I actually really like that feature. So according to the manual, first thing you should do is charge this up to 100%. So that's what we're going to do. All right, I'm going to take the wall charger first. And again, it should be, I think, close to 90 watts. Let's see here. See what this goes up to. So it looks like we're going to be at 84 watts. And again, that's going to take, like, if we're at 0%, that's going to take well over 7 hours, 7.5 hours. But again, we're at 56% and it's telling us it's going to take 4.4 hours right now to get up to there. Let's unplug this one and then try a USB-C. See what we get here. Again, this should be 60 watts, I believe. The display is kind of doing some funky things here. So I'm not 100% sure if it's even charging it. So I unplugged the USB-C and plugged just the wall charger back in, and it's still doing some kind of wonky things here. It's jumping to 100 plus watts, and it's showing a different time. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with it. Even unplugging this, it's still acting like it's charging. See the display still moving? Yeah, so I tried a USB-C cable again, and I'm getting nothing. And according to the manual here, you should be able to charge as long as you're using a 60 watt or higher wall adapter, and I'm using a 65 watt, and it's not doing anything. So I unplugged the adapter from the wall and plugged it back in, and I'm getting that same thing that I got earlier where it's just kind of jumping all over the place. And none of these are showing me anything close to 60 watts. So that's a little bit disappointing. Yeah, I've unplugged stuff from the unit again, and the display looks like it's charging and showing different watts, and there's literally nothing plugged into it at all. And whatever's going on with it right now, it's not allowing me to power it off. So I plugged it back into the wall charger again, and it seems to have stabilized at 85 watts. So while this is charging, I am going to make sure that it has pass-through charging. So I'm going to take a lamp, plug it in, maybe. There we go. So the AC's on. Let's plug this in. Yeah, the light just came on. So that is working. So let's see if I unplug this from the wall, if the light stays on or if it shuts off. Light did stay on, so it does have like a UPS feature. I don't know what the milliseconds is of it, but like an uninterrupted power supply. So hopefully if you had a laptop or computer, something like that plugged in, and monitors and stuff like that. If you had a power outage, hopefully your equipment would stay on. I do want to try putting a heavier load on just to see if the load display shows more than what the input is. This light here is only like a 2.5, 3 watt bulb. The inverter is using like 3 watts or so to convert the DC to AC. So right now we're at like 6 watts. I have a can opener down here that should be like 130 or so. So I'm going to hit it, and then combined it should be like close to 140 or something like that. We'll see if it changes the display. So it looks like when you are charging, it will only show you your charging watts. But the fans did kick on and stuff like that because I was pulling, 140 watts or whatever. But we do know that pass-through charging works, and we know that the UPS feature works. All right, we were at 100%, so let's get this unplugged from the wall, and we'll check out some of the ports. So now you have your power station, solar generator, all charged up. What do you use it for? So obviously this can be used during a power outage. You can use these for tailgating, while you're boating, picnicking, camping. There literally are so many uses. Imagine this being a small gas generator, and then just think of all the uses that you could use that for. Now, I will tell you that this is only 500 watts, so this will not run your really large appliances like your refrigerator, microwave, things like that. This will not power those, but pretty much everything else it will. So let's get it turned on. Again, we'll press a button for 2 or 3 seconds, get our power on. And then I'm going to start by just kind of going across some of the ports. So I need to turn the USB ports on. So that's on. And then we'll plug in my phone here. You can see it's now starting to charge. I'll bring that up there so you can see that it is in fact charging. So there's another open USB-A port. Something I would likely use it for are for a battery charger for AA's, 18650, 14500s, whatever kind of batteries you have. AA's are kind of important during power outages, but we would plug that in. You can see that powered on right away. And so we could be charging batteries with that port. I'm just going to leave this stuff plugged in as we go along. So now we have some USB-C ports. So the first USB-C port I'll just use for my watch here real quick. And we can see that it is charging. I'll leave that over there for a bit. The second one, I will use this iPad here. Make sure that it's going to power on, and it did. We are charging on it. Now, according to what it's showing right now, I've got a phone plugged in, this battery charger, this iPad, the watch, and it's only showing that we're using 2 watts or 4 watts. It's kind of fluctuating here, but that should be a little bit more than that. And this seems to be kind of charging, not charging, charging, not charging. Something seems to be wrong with that power delivery port, because that's where I tried charging it earlier too, and it didn't want to do that. So I'm going to switch this off so it doesn't damage my iPad there, and go into just a regular USB-C and see what that does. So that's the 18 watt one versus the 60 watt power delivery. And I'm going to make sure that stays charging. Yeah, and if you look now, it's showing that we have 16 watts. Again, the phone's only a couple, and then the iPad is probably 12 to 15 or whatever. All right, let's make sure that that wireless charger up on top is going to work. So we're going to hit that. I'll set my phone up there. And yeah, it does. Definitely charging. All right, to use these, we do have to turn that DC side on. All right. I don't have any of these barrel plug type. You can use these for lights. I think that's either a 5521 or a 5525. I think it's a 5521 though. So if you have any of those types of plugs, you can use stuff there. And then this is obviously just a 12-volt cigarette style plug. So if you have heated blankets that plug into those, I have a 12-volt refrigerator. I don't want to pull it up here for this video, but this is what I would use this for, is to plug my 12-volt refrigerator into that. And checking the voltage of that outlet. Looks like it's just over 12, 12.2, 12.3. And again, we know that this is 10 amps with that 12 volts, so it's 120 watts. So technically, let's say you used up all the outlets up here and down here, and you wanted some more, whether they be regular outlets or USB, USB-C type outlets, you could take a little inverter, like a car inverter, and plug into this thing here. Should be able to turn this on. We got a blue light, so we're good to go. So this thing is working fine now. And I could use these outlets, again, as long as I don't exceed 120 watts. So I could take a lamp here. And obviously I still have those two open outlets there, but I'll just show you with this. I could plug a lamp into this thing, and it will work just fine. And again, I could plug more iPhones or tablets or whatever it might be. I could use up all this stuff as long as I'm not exceeding 120 watts. So having one of these little power inverters can be a nice bonus to go with a power station. And I think I paid like maybe $20 or something like that for this thing. All right, let's check out these AC outlets next. So we'll turn that on. If you watch up here, it's going to show that we are using a few watts right now. It takes 3 watts basically to convert the DC energy from the batteries into AC power. These are supposed to be 110 outlets here, so let's check to make sure that we're getting around 110. So I'm getting 10, right about 110. So I have this WORKLIGHT here. I know it pulls quite a few watts, so I'm going to try it out with the power station and see what we get. All right, so it's on. The fans are running. We're over 330 watts right now. And I'll probably do a capacity test later and use this lamp when I do it. But it's running it fine. What I'll probably do here too is I'm going to check the other outlet and see if we're staying around 110. It did drop down a little bit. We're at like 105, 106. Again, it's supposed to be a pure sine wave inverter on it. I'm going to try this Craftsman drill next with it. If you look at the voltage and the amperage, at 120 volts, it's 5 amps. So that is actually 600 watts, which is more than what this machine's supposed to do. However, this only does 110, which would make it 550 watts, which is still more, but I still want to see if it'll do it and kind of what happens. And so let's just go for it here. So that was obviously interesting because that never got above like 220 or 230 or something like that, but it runs this drill perfectly fine. And it was not like slowing down or bogging down or anything like that. So obviously something like this would be beneficial if you're working on a house that doesn't have power yet. This will probably run air compressors and saws, or if you're maybe building a privacy fence and you're hundreds of feet maybe away from your house and you don't want to put 5 extension cords together, just take this out there where you're going and this will run most power tools. So up next, I'm going to get this charged back up to 100%. Then we're going to do a capacity test where I'm going to put a watt meter in here. And then I'm going to plug probably one of those lamps in this and basically let this thing go until it completely shuts off. They claim that it has 666 or so watt hours. Typically, you want to get at least 80% of that. So we should be maybe 520 to 550 or somewhere around there. So we'll see what we get. All right, here's our setup. I'm still plugged into the wall. I'm at 100%. Got the lamp there. Got the watt meter there. I'm going to reset that. So I know that that's cleared out now. We'll plug the lamp in. And then we will unplug this from the wall. Lamp's pulling, mine says 354 watts. The display is showing 330 watts, so it's a 20 watt difference or so, but we'll let this go for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, however long it takes for this to shut off. I'll probably do this test at least 2 or 3 times and then take an average and see how many watt hours we get out of the unit. Got a little bit of sunshine today, so I'm just kind of making sure that this Veclips6 will in fact take a charge. I got an 80 watt panel set up here, and I'm getting somewhere between 60 and 70 watts. It's kind of bouncing back and forth, but it's not too bad for February in Ohio. So all right guys, I left off the video doing the capacity test on this Veclips6, and it actually performed really well. However, when I went to recharge it, it was taking forever, like 9+ hours. And I was really disappointed that that USB-C port was not working properly. So I actually reached back out to them, told them what the problem was, and then got in touch with people in warranty, and they have actually sent me a replacement unit. So I'm going to get this one unboxed. We'll make sure that that USB-C port works properly, and then we'll wrap this video up. So I just got this out of the box. I'm going to plug this in and see what we get here. And as you can see, it's not charging. So this replacement unit is doing the exact same thing when you try to charge it via that power delivery port. So I'm going to say that that is a feature that just does not work, and you're going to have to charge it by the main port there. So that's obviously disappointing that you cannot charge via that power delivery port there. What I was hoping is that we could get, 80, 85 watts charging here, and then at the same time plug in your USB-C cable and get another 60 for, 145 or whatever. It would reduce the charging times by almost half. This is obviously the second one of these that I've had, and neither one of them has worked to do that. And I probably showed this earlier in the video, but again, it says that you should be able to charge via that USB-C power delivery port, which is right there, as long as you're using a 65 watt or 60 watt or higher USB-C wall adapter. And I'm using a 65 watt, as you can see right there. And I've charged all kinds of laptops and MacBooks and stuff like that with this, so I know that the wattage is correct on it. All right, let's go over some of the pros and cons on the Veclips6 here. And some of these are just my opinion on what things I like or dislike, and then some of them were actually tested to be not working, obviously. So let's start with that USB-C port. It's supposed to be an input and output port, but it's only an output. So just kind of keep that in mind if you were to pick one of these up. Second thing, and again, this is just kind of my opinion, I don't particularly care for this strap up on top like this. I mean, it feels sturdy enough, but I would definitely like an actual handle, or have them built in is what I would really prefer, have like built-in handles onto it. Or if they want to continue making and using the strap, just make it a little bit longer That way it can go all the way over the back of the unit, which it does not right now. Another thing that I would prefer or change is, there's nothing wrong with the light, it works fine, but I would actually put the light on the front of the unit somehow, either coming down this way, you maybe have two little lights or something like that. Imagine, being in the dark. So one, it's even hard to see the buttons to plug stuff in. And if you had the light on the front, you could see where your USB or your AC ports, stuff like that. The other thing is, a lot of people use these like permanently in their vans or RVs, and these sit like in a cubby basically. And so that light is pretty much useless once you push this back somewhere. Next negative for me was the charging times. When I was doing that capacity test, I would run it basically where it was down to almost zero, where it would shut itself off. And the couple times I did it, it took nearly 9 hours for this to recharge. Even though it starts off at 85 watts and it should be done in like 7 hours and something, once it would get up to like 98% or so, the wattage would cut down to like 5 or 10. It was really low, and it would take like an extra like 2 hours to finish off that 2%. Another thing that I've noticed over the month that I've had this is that some of these buttons can be a little bit like temperamental. So I showed earlier for the power on, power off, you do have to hold that for a couple seconds, but the other ones you should be able to just press and they just should work. And a lot of times, like I just hit the AC and it didn't do it. And usually if you hit it a second time, then it works. And the last thing I'll mention on the negatives is that this is still using a lithium polymer battery. And a lot of the manufacturers have switched over to lithium iron phosphate, which tends to be a little bit safer, and you're able to get a lot more life cycles out of them. All right, let's talk about some of the positives. Again, keep in mind, a lot of these are just my opinion. First thing I want to say is just the looks of this power station. I probably have had, I don't know, close to 30 or more power stations, and this one looks the coolest. Like, I love the overall appearance of it, the color combination. It just looks really sleek. I mean, I really do like it. And I know you're not buying a power station for the looks, but when it performs well and it looks really good, it's just an added bonus. So I've obviously had two of these at this point now, and both of them have been really well constructed. Like, you know how there's a difference between like cheap plastics and then quality plastics? This feels like the quality premium type plastic. Even the rubber on the covers and stuff here just feels a little bit nicer than some of the other power stations that I've had. So I think overall, they are really well constructed. The other thing that I like is the display. It basically gives you all the critical information that you're going to need. The watts that you're using, the time that you're remaining. It shows you your percentage over here. If you're using output power or input, it'll show it. I like how many ports are available to use. You got, your 4 USBs. You got your DC ports over here, your AC outlets, wireless charging. So you got 9 ports, and pretty much all of them are on the front of the unit. Again, I've had other power stations where like your AC ports might be on the side or something else. I like everything being on the front here. Overall, this thing is very compact and lightweight, which does make it pretty easy to move around. When I did the capacity test, my average was 568 watt hours, which is, I believe, right around 85%, which is actually high. Like the industry standard is like 80%. So you're getting a lot more capacity with this than what you do, other brands. So let's talk about pricing real quick. If you are a Sam's Club member or know somebody who is, that is the place to buy this unit. They are $250 on there, which again, this is a 666 watt hour unit. You factor that out, that's 37 cents a watt hour. That is by far the absolute cheapest, the best deal that I have ever seen on a power station. Most of them are in the 70-cent range. I've even had multiple ones that are well over $1 per watt hour. So 37 cents is an insane deal, and I would definitely recommend looking into them. And even though I mentioned some of those negatives earlier, the only true negative was that power delivery is not an input output like the manual says. It's output only. It still works perfectly fine to charge all of your devices and all that stuff. It's just you can't charge the unit through that port. I know I said these are great for, you know, power outages. They're great for camping. They're great for tailgating. You can even take it out on your boat, stuff like that. But they're also good for people who live in apartments and just cannot have a gas generator. They're great for the elderly because maybe they can't even move the gas generator to get it ready, or don't have the ability to start it anymore or anything like that. And these are really simple to use. Something like this is even good just to set up in your backyard. Like maybe you have a projector and a screen that you guys want to watch a sports game or, you know, a movie or something like that. You just pull this thing out there and it will run all your stuff in the middle of your yard. But I will try to leave that Sam's Club link down in the video description. I'll leave a couple other links as well, but by far Sam's Club is the cheapest place to buy it. But all right, guys, if you found this video helpful or informative in any way, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And that's going to be it on this one. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it.